hope I put on a good show for you. There's Alice. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Brian. It's 1 a.m. here, but I'm making it so far.
Oh, I'm honored to have you here. Thank you.
all the way from England.
Yeah. Hey, I know he was Mr. Daldorph, but hey.
Hello, great to see you.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, Brian, it's Julie.
Hey, Dad.
Oh, hi.
It's your daughter. It's your daughter.
I know you. You're in Montana.
I'm in Montana.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Great to see you.
Me and Filu here.
Yes.
Hello. You've come a long way.
Yeah, I come from afar.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming, Laura. I so much appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to be here. It's 9 p.m. here.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm not sure I ever imagined that Meadowlark would have an international audience. This is so exciting. What a turnout. I'm honored to have worked with Brian Daldorph on this book, Kansas Poems. And you know, when you're a publisher of poetry, you always create a mental list of poets you would like to work with. Brian probably doesn't know that he's been on my list for a while, but he has been. I was thrilled to see him as a finalist in the Birdie Poetry Prize competition, and working with him on this book has just been a delight. I also want to very quickly say a special word of thanks to Lindsay Garcia. She's been with us since August, and I honestly don't know how I would have finished 2020 without her. Meadowlark has gone from publishing 1 to 2 books a year to, I lost count, 6, 7, 8 last year. And I'm just so excited to have Lindsay on board, and she's really helping us in this season of growth for Meadowlark Press. So thank you all for coming, and I'll pass it back to Lindsay.
Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate it. This is one of the coolest jobs ever, and I really am so proud of what Meadowlark does and so honored to work with authors like Brian. All right, let me tell you a little bit about the man of the hour. I wrote this up a little bit, so it might sound exactly like I'm reading it. I first met Brian in Oak Hill Cemetery just earlier this week. It seems like the appropriate poetic thing to do, right? We had been virtually chatting for weeks prior, but it really wasn't until we were on those grounds, appreciating life and death together, where Brian really came alive to me as a person and in his craft. As we were walking, Brian spoke of his need to write, mostly poetry, but other forms as well. Sometimes writing is the only thing that gets us through to a better place. In tragedy and in celebration, writing helps us open our perspective and be more receptive to what's going on inside and around us. Brian listens very carefully to his world, both the land and its inhabitants. In an interview, he said, "My writing most often begins when I start to think about, in the words of Sister Helen Prejin, what really matters to me and to the people around me." Some of what really matters to Brian is the work he does as a teacher at Douglas County Jail. The book includes a shout out to his writing team there, and Brian credits that experience for inspiring a significant amount of his writing. He said, "The writing in the jail class was so vivid and so often focused on the Kansas experience. How could I not be influenced?" The state of Kansas means a great deal to Brian, hence this new collection's name, Kansas Poems. He has lived half of his life in Kansas and has been impacted by the people and places in these poems, including the University of Kansas, where he also teaches, the Kansas River, and Oak Hill Cemetery. Brian said he believes he has grown well in this rich soil, and that's apparent. Even though Brian is originally from England, he tells people he's from Kansas, and then usually tells his more complicated story. Brian originally came to the States for his master's and doctorate degrees, and work at KU brought him to and kept him in Kansas. He often traveled back to England to visit his parents. Though his mother passed away in 2015, again, we would like to take a moment to remember her on this day, her birthday. Brian also lived in Japan, Senegal, and Zambia. In Kansas, Brian's love for teaching at KU makes him wish he could do it all over again. Both of his daughters even graduated from KU. Brian understands that Lawrence is not a place he's just passing through. He found himself buying a house, putting down roots, gathering a community, and writing along the way. He knows how much the poems in this book mean to him in helping him make sense of things and helping him to express what he thinks is so important. His hope is that these poems could be meaningful to others and perhaps even inspire others to write because of something they come across in his work, some poem that says something they really need to hear. Everyone has a story to tell, and you'll hear some of those stories tonight. This is just a bit of Brian's story. I'm happy to share it with you, and I'm happy we're all sharing this part of his story together. Now,
Well, thank you so much to all of you for coming to this and being a part of this. I just feel very blessed to know you all, and thank you. Some of you are coming a long way to do this, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Unfreezing. First daffodils outside City Hall facing south. Spray of crocuses in the front yard of 829 East 13th. And in his heart, all the flowers of spring waiting only for warmth. Magnolia in May, Lawrence, Kansas. What we did in my parents' garden, we should have done for our marriage. Plucked off brown, withering petals of the magnolia, dropped them in a black bucket so strong new buds could push through. My mother showed us how to do it. We did it in her garden, didn't do it at home, and then it was too late for flowers. Menninger's, Topeka, May 2008. It's closed for business now, so if your mind's walls are cracked, your windows broken, if your foundation's slipping and you need a new roof after the hailstorm, Menninger's can't help you anymore. Boarded up windows, the famous clock stopped, fences up to keep the bums out, the look and reek of decay. You'll have to find some other place for repair. Just like you, Menninger's is falling down. And also thanks to Brenna for the cover of the book. Apart from everything else that she does, she's also a really good photographer. So I always ask her for her photographs when I'm working on something. And I love the cover of this book, which Tracy helped with as well. When Brenna read this book, she said certain things about it that I just hadn't realized. And she said that as she read through the poems, there seemed to be a lot of people going missing. And I hadn't realized that, but in rereading the book, I realized that a number of the poems about people who for one reason or another go missing. This is a poem called Missing Husband. It was a cold spring morning, sunny with a clear sky, when Hank left the dishes half done, grabbed his jacket and keys, and drove off in his Ford truck. Didn't take his wallet. Didn't take anything but his truck and himself. Ever since then, and how many years has it been, Mabel has been asked over and over, what was it that made him leave like that? There must have been something. What was it? Women know these things, know if a man's happy or not happy, know if he's got his eye on some other woman, know if another woman's got her eye on him. She can smell it on him. But there was nothing, nothing. That's what Mabel tells them, nothing. Apart from that one thing, but no one else needs to know about that, such a thing between a husband and wife. You must have heard something, a postcard from Las Vegas or a phone call late one Tuesday evening, something. But there was nothing, she insisted, nothing. Apart from that one thing, that she'd torn it up and burnt it. I worked on this poem for so long, and it started out being quite a long, detailed poem, but I cut back on it and cut back on it until it's really just a few lines now, but these seem to me the most important lines. And you read these names on the memorial and you just wonder, who were they? What was their story? And that's what I wrote about in this poem. It's called Kansas City Vietnam War Memorial, April 2000. American flag snapping, cool, cloudy afternoon. Cars on Nichols Parkway. Dirty flowers and dried petals on concrete. Plastic model GI. What was Felix Pacheco's agony? Jack Renfro's last word? James Smith's? What happened to the 5 Moors? Who cried when Larry Pettit didn't come home? You know, sailing to Manhattan, Kansas. We look out together at the still green waves of the Flint Hills. We're seeing the same things people saw hundreds of years ago. This land's too wild to be tamed. Might as well try to chain the sea. You say you'd like to come here in winter to see the vast snowscape. We're here such a short time compared to the rise and fall of this dry inland ocean. We take a few photographs and move on. This is called The Prodigal Son. And it began with a story somebody told me about parents getting much older, and then one of their children went home to look after them, you know, quite a common situation. And the son who came home, one thing that kind of struck me about this was they said that the son had been basically living off the grid. He didn't have a driving license, didn't pay taxes, didn't fill in any government forms or anything like that. So he was just kind of sort of off the grid and sort of had no connection in many ways. And so he was the son who came home to look after the parents. The prodigal son goes home to his parents' house, the only one of their kids free of his own family commitments, to look after them in their late years. He doesn't take anything back with him, doesn't need anything, sits with them in the morning, swims in the afternoon, stick-thin arms hauling him through the tepid water of Clearwater Lake. Most days his parents are fine, so he spends his time reading every book in the house, walking downtown to the coffee shop, where he stares out at people busy with their lives. When nothing matters anyway, it might as well not matter here, where he can at least be useful, where every other night he can cook chili dogs and corn, get half drunk in his room on homemade wine. The book is divided into the 4 seasons. It just seemed that the poems kind of worked well together in that way. So, Cooper City. Storefronts boarded up, but Jack's Autos is still there, with rust buckets, non-starters, and Crooked Jack, who left half a leg and most of his soul in Vietnam. Where Zach's gas used to be, there's a quick shop. High school kids used to hang out at Zach's, but they're long gone to that new school in Taylorville. Main Street's a few hand-me-down stores, some sleepy attorneys, and Zeke Haskins, undertaker, with old Zeke in the window, wondering days on end if he or Cooper City will go first. A poem called Damned for Jocelyn. This sunny Saturday morning, my friend and I are driving past Dull Cemetery, fenced off behind a new, shiny wire fence. That's the gate of hell, I say. It might well be teeming with devils just below the surface. They might well be massing there for a final attack on our world. But we don't care. We don't care. We're happy driving down Highway 24, talking about our damn families. Ex-footballer. They say he changed. Now he's moody all the time, spends hours alone in his room, headphones on. He'd always been a happy kid. Loved sport, of course. His dad took him to games and told him, Don't believe the crap about players getting hurt. This game makes you a man. He played in junior high, hit hard, nothing felt better than that. Played in high school, where they called him Suicide, because he'd hunt down the biggest guys. Got a scholarship at a JUCO, then recruited by a Big Ten school. Missed his junior year through injury. Then, in his last season, took a hit that knocked him out. He was never the same after that. What to do without his team? Where to go? Where to go? To Miller's Creek with a gun and be done with it, all done. Tug of war. My friend John was so badly wounded in Vietnam that he knew he was dying. He'd seen a lot of guys with chest wounds, like his wound, a sucking wound, and none of them survived it. He prayed, he tried to make his peace with God. Then by some miracle he's still trying to figure out, he did survive it. Spent 18 months in the hellhole of hospital, recovering from that wound. When he staggered out of that hospital, all he wanted to do was to go back to his war, where he had a gun in his hand and knew who his enemies were, where he knew who his enemies were, where he knew his buddies would never let him down. No one could say he hadn't done his part, so surely he could go home now. But all he felt was the tug of war. It's called Poet at the Door for Gary Lechleiter. On a sunny Sunday afternoon in Kansas in fall, you tell about Kansas killers, the one-step, two-step snake, one step and you're dead, two steps if you're lucky, the copperhead with venom to kill a cow, tarantulas migrating north, scorpions, the brown recluse spider that bit your friend and stripped off a chunk of his calf, the black widows your dad would flush out of dry gutters and squash under his work boots, but they'd be waiting in outhouses and dreams with that one bite to freeze your limbs and damn your lungs. Later, when I haul out trash, that unnerving smile you left me with makes entering my garden shed a matter of life and death. I think for me, poems start in different places. They start with something that somebody says, or something that I see, something that I hear, an image. This poem started with seeing a woman at a park in December, just sitting there. And I kind of wondered what she was doing there. And the poem is kind of my story about what she's doing there. I mean, I've always liked to kind of see people and imagine their stories. You know, I guess that's what anybody with any sort of artistic interest does. I mean, you see the world and you try to explain it in the stories that you tell. A park with yellow whales. She stops off at the park on Holmes and Delaware with slides, swings, merry-go-round, and yellow whales. Cold as her heart out here in December wind, and that's why she likes it, sitting on the park bench like some young mother watching over her invisible kids, yelling, chasing, playing tag. She lights up her first cigarette in 15 years. If her mother could see her now, she'd be laughing bitterly. She told her that Jack was no good. She feels her mother's scorn, like this icy northwesterly cutting through the yellow whales, biting into her white, white bones. This was from quite a long time ago, I think, when my kids were young and we took a trip to Topeka Zoo. And there were these poor Andean condors in a cage, sort of hobbling around. I'll read the poem and then I'll just mention what Oscar said about it, which I thought was exactly right. And I think it made me realize what I was trying to do in the poem, which maybe I didn't at the time. Andean condors, Topeka Zoo, Kansas. Condors hobble around their cage, on stupid feet, seeking holes to escape through, to stretch their glider wings. They jerk along like chickens with beady red eyes and nothing to catch but feeding times. Eccentric gowned professors cut off from the heights, mocked by chatting sparrows and starlings flitting in and out through netting. All the way from the Andes to Topeka, Kansas, black and white peacocks, wigless judges, watched by the thick-lensed boy in a wheelchair, flapping his arms. And when I read that poem, Huascar said, yeah, I mean, that's a poem about not being able to fly. And I thought that's exactly right. And I think it's for anybody who's in a situation where they can't be who they want to be. And this poor condor, which is just such a magnificent bird, is just stuck in this cage, sort of hobbling around with these wings that really don't make sense there. So this poem called The Visit is about parents visiting a son in prison. And it's sort of a composite of different stories, different people put together into this single narrative. And I read this, this is for my wonderful teaching team at the jail. This is for Mike Hartnett and Antonio and Sherry and Aya. We've got this great team there. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to go to the jail since March because of the pandemic, but we'll try to get back in there and carry on with the work that we've been doing there. The visit. Good visit, we say. Fine visit, actually. We'd driven across state to the penitentiary. Looked like an army base as we drove up to it. Razor wire, guard towers, breeze block buildings. It's Sadness City, my wife says. We didn't expect that Anthony would look so good. He's clean, he's gotten pudgy, his face looks fuller, his eyes quite lively. We'd been expecting someplace dirty and dingy. In fact, it's clean and full of light, maybe too much light. We ask Anthony how he's doing, and he says, a day at a time, you know, can't do it better than that. That's how everyone says you have to get through time in here. If you start thinking about how many days you have left, you go crazy. Anthony talks about AA and NA meetings, says he's met a counselor, Jackie, he really likes. She says she'll work with me on the outside too. He tells us that his sentencing's on March the 1st, and his attorney thinks he might get 6 years for a first offense, might have to serve 3. Then I'll get out of here and I won't ever come back. It's so boring. Emily doesn't want to know about how boring it is. She has other questions to ask, but doesn't know how to ask them. Are you safe? Does anyone try to do anything to you? Anthony says he's been finding out about chef school. That's a profession he could really go for. And there's more of a future in it than there is in crime to support my drug habit. We laugh because we know Anthony wants us to laugh, to show we acknowledge that he's so much on top of things he can laugh about them. I hear Emily gasp when Anthony, after saying goodbye, turns away. A good visit, we say, a fine visit. Then we hold each other in our cold car, both of us sobbing, shaking, as the late afternoon light of a winter's day drained away. Camaro. The day he lost his job at the car parts factory, my dad pulled up outside our house in a new cherry red Camaro. He took his time getting out so the neighbors would see. Winter sun shone down on us like God was peeking out of heaven. When I ran out to him, my dad smirked. Want to come for a spin? I touched the shiny paint like it was a bright red crucifix. I asked him whose car it was. Mine, he said, ours. He explained how the bank liked to help good men get what they want, and that sounded good to me. But even as my father drove fast down Honeywell, left at the lights, I knew that my mother might not take this well. That was later. Dad was happy. Swell, he said, this is swell. I didn't know about the terrible things that would happen next. My dad was driving his new cherry red Camaro, and we were the kings of the streets. And then this is the last poem in the book, and it's called Estate Sale. And I think it just seemed right to end the collection with an estate sale. All day Saturday, a crowd at my neighbor's house on 13th Street, empty for 5 years. The auctioneer rattles off his call. $1, $1.50, $1.52. You know how they do it. Can't do it like they do, but you get the point. There's not much left of her life. Boxes of junk sold off as lots for a few dollars to traders in bib overalls and baseball caps. 23 chairs, good for firewood, on the sidewalk. Thermometer registering 53 degrees in February sun. Sunday morning birdsong and the odd car. Outside her house, by 13th Street, the leftovers of her life. Brass floor lamp, split cushions, old books and pictures, wet through from last night's rain. And thank you so much for coming and joining me. Means the world to me.
This is so cool. I'm sitting in Amsterdam. It's dark. It's the middle of the night. I'm Brian's second cousin. Brian's
Hello.
father. Hi, Brian. And hi, Brenna. And hi.
Lucy.
Yes, she's there. Okay. And hi, Misi. There. Yes. I love it. Like you, Brian, I also write poems, very different from yours, I think. And I love some of your lines. It's just, oh! So this has been so cool.
Yes. Oh,
Tyler, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good to
It's
see you, man.
Forever since we've seen each other in person, huh?
Yeah, but we communicate a lot, so it's great to see you, man.
Yeah. I think Prodigal Son was probably my favorite poem.
This may be some of your strongest for quite a while. They really resonate. I love the way you end things like right in the middle. You know, that's cool. I just want you to know that my best friend was listening too.
That's what I like to see.
Yeah, and I really think he gets more out of these things than he lets on.
No.
Right.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'd read the book before. This is an absolutely stunning and moving and beautiful collection. Well, as you already know, I think you're a great poet. And you do many things well, but one thing I think you do particularly well is you create characters. You create pieces that are like micro stories, no? Where you put yourself in the head of a person, a man or a woman. They've said here that you can do women characters very well, and it's true, but all kinds of characters, and you tell a story of somebody living in their own circumstances. And what you do is very much your own, but it reminds me a bit of Borges, no? Who did the same thing, no? With characters, obscure characters he picked from Argentine history or Icelandic ancient history, and he went way back to choose his characters. And I wonder if you see yourself as part of a tradition in that sense, no?
Yes, so I think if I'm in any tradition, it would be in the folk tradition. I love folk songs, and I love the idea that there are so many stories to tell, and that just as you say, it doesn't have to be the story of a prince or a king. It's the story of a guy who is like a farmer or something like that, and he has stories to tell. And I think too that in telling those stories, you're sort of telling the story of the place as well. And you pointed that out in what you wrote about the book. And I think that's quite right. That's what I'm trying to do. So yes, I certainly see that connection. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Laura. Troy.
You know something, brother? You always speak all the way down, well, read, I guess, in this case, all the way down to the bottom of my soul. And I just thank you for it.
Well, I appreciate that so much from you, Troy. That means a lot to me. Thank you, sir.
Nothing but love for you and Messiah.
Thank you. Hey, appreciate it.
Hi there, Brian. I just wanted to say I read and enjoyed your entire book, but when I got to page 20, Missing Son,
yeah,
that poem hit me in the chest. That was a fist to the chest. I had to spend the next half hour on Google learning about this.
Yeah, you just hope that one day something will come knock on your door and
you almost know it won't.
Yeah, you wait and wait for it. Yeah, I was very much drawn to that story, as you can imagine. Yeah.
Sure.
Called Missing Son. In 1989, their son, their only child, a high school senior at Linwood High, drove off in his mother's car to go to a party. He left the party late that night, and he's never been seen again. His parents are now in their 70s, and their biggest fear is dying without ever finding out what happened to him. The car's never been found. No trace of him, nothing. The KBI case still open. Private investigators came up with nothing apart from rumors he was involved in a satanic cult, or killed by drug dealers, or crashed the car into Stranger Creek, where it sank in the mud and has never been found. All that's left are two parents still waiting up after 40 years for their son to come home. Almost time for them to sleep.
Congratulations again, Brian. And as we all, listen to you reading these amazing poems, I would say you poured your heart and soul in poetry, and not only in your poems, but also in everything that you do. So you're an inspiration for me, I would say, and I hope for every one of us here. Yeah, I mean, I'm enchanted by the economy of language. Like in few words, you just hit the nail. It's amazing, and that's, as Alexander Pope said, like brevity is the soul of wit.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Chris Helvey. Hi, Brian.
Chris, hi. Good to meet you, man. I've been
Yeah.
reading your book forever.
It's good to see you. I have a little different picture of you than I had otherwise, but it's all good. I thought your poems are wonderful. I'm a little bit more of a novelist, but I think that good poets, and you certainly absolutely are one, do something that we novelists fail to do, and that is to capture the entire story in just a few words. And two that you read tonight that spoke so much to me were The Missing Husband and then Cooper City. And it was, thank you.
Great, Chris. Well, I've been enjoying your books for years, so keep sending them my way,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
This was a real joy, Brian.
Doug, thank you, man.
Thank you, Brian.
Antonio, good to see you. I want to see your dog.
He's sleeping.
Okay. Oh, I got to see that guy.
Yeah, he's a handful.
We'll stay in touch, Antonio. I'll see you soon.
See you, Brian.